Okay, what's happening here? How can you do a plunge attack from flat ground? In this video, I'm going to explain how this technique works and the intricacies of using something like this in live combat instead of, well, versus a tree, plus some more advanced versions of this later on. First off, the name of this technique is called Dragonstrike, originally found in the CN server, and then later translated into the name I just gave. There are three main components to performing Dragonstrike: Hitlag from an initial attack, a dash jump, and finally a plunge. All three of these steps must be performed in quick succession to do Dragonstrike successfully. Let's go over these components in a more in-depth manner. Hitlag is something the developers have purposely coded into the game. The intention of Hitlag is to create a noticeable delay, particularly during heavy attack animations, so as to give a sense of weight to the attack. This is how a claymore attack feels different comparatively to a sword or polearm attack. As a result, generally speaking, the more heavy an attack should be, the more Hitlag it has. However, there are quite a few exceptions and weird cases of inconsistencies. For example, Yanfei's hit from her A4 passive generates Hitlag and can be Dragonstrike with, but Klee's charge attacks don't generate Hitlag despite them being heavy attacks capable of mining ore. Putting these exceptions aside, the main sources of a Hitlag generation are through normal attacks via a sword, polearm, or claymore. Most Catalyst characters aren't able to generate Hitlag other than the ones that can throw hands and some other exceptions. If you want a full list of skills or abilities that generate Hitlag, there is a somewhat complete list on the Genshin Impact wiki that outlines this and their overall Hitlag duration values. It's not fully complete because there's some stuff missing, like Yanfei's aforementioned A4 passive duration, but generally speaking, it's all there. So if you ever want to see if your character can reduce Hitlag and maybe do a Dragonstrike, look there. Now that I've given an overview of Hitlag and its generation methods, let's talk about its relevancy to Dragonstrike. Due to how it's coded in-game, Hitlag has the ability to briefly freeze certain timers associated with the character generating it. On top of this, it also freezes the momentum values of the character when the Hitlag is produced. This means that you can potentially jump/move farther than you would normally, assuming you produce Hitlag at the correct instance. This is where we get into dash jumping. Dash jumping is as simple as it sounds. All you want to do is input your dash and jump at almost the same time. The main thing you want to do is leave a frame's worth of time between the inputs. If you input both your dash and your jump at the same time, your dash will typically be cancelled and you'll just be jumping in place instead, which is not what you want to do in an active combat situation. Additionally, spamming the jump and dash inputs may also lead to this outcome, so don't do that either. Just dash, leave a minute, non-zero time gap, then jump. Movement speed also helps with how high you can go, simply due to the momentum increase going up from, you being able to move faster, which is why having some source of movement speed can make Dragonstriking more consistent, with some common sources being Animal Resonance, Diona's Shield, and effects from weapons and constellations such as Skyward Blade and Jean's C2. Finally, plunging is pretty easy. Spamming your plunge attack input has been fine in my experience, and I haven't personally noticed any dropped Dragonstrikes as a result of it. Still, I've largely used Claymore characters when using this technique. Characters with shorter Hitlag windows might only have a brief frame window where they are high enough to plunge, and in those cases, spamming the plunge input might not work out. That's how the Dragonstrike in a nutshell. Due to the difference in Hitlag durations between characters, you basically have to relearn the relative timings between each of your inputs every time you try to Dragonstrike with a new character, the same way you'd learn a combo in a fighting game. Though, I should say, most combos in fighting games are vastly more complicated than what Dragonstrike is. That said, only the timings change, the inputs don't. In terms of practicing, I personally use some trees if possible to get a grasp on the timings, then move on to live enemy practice. Do note, you cannot use a tree if your attack is not a physical one. If your attack is not a physical attack, this won't really work out very well. Practicing only on a static target isn't recommended, as the Hitlag timing is different enemy to enemy, which is what can make doing this technique frustrating. Also, try not to hit an enemy during a stagger resistant window. Doing so actively increases the Hitlag duration, which may not exist on other enemies. It's good to find these windows out in the event you'll be actively fighting an enemy of the same type in the content you care about, but otherwise, don't bother. Lastly, be aware that for certain enemies, their hitbox might push you upwards enough for you to perform a plunging attack and give you a false positive. This is known as footstooling and is completely separate from Dragonstriking. Generally, don't be discouraged if you can't manage to do it instantly. These things take practice and time to really get right. On the other hand, consistency is key. After all, most enemies won't die from a single Dragonstrike. You'll have to do multiple in the run, so just getting it the first time won't really matter if you can't do it when it counts. Once you get to the point of being proficient with the base technique, there are some further additions that you can do to spice up the gameplay, namely controlling the movement of where you plunge. During the dash jump step, you can put in some directional inputs. This allows you to direct which direction the plunge attack goes. Of course, this is limited to 8 directions on keyboard and mouse, but for other input methods, you have 360-degree control. To do this, you simply want to cue your directional input at the same time you dash. Now, what is the point of this? Well, you know how I mentioned enemies can use their hitbox to bump you upwards? The exact opposite can also be true. If the enemy model juts over the player, you can be roofed as you try to perform a Dragonstrike due to the hitbox collision between the enemy model and player model. Here's a cartoon representation of that.
Well, what you know about that?
Now, you can avoid this issue by inputting directional keys to avoid that part of the enemy hitbox that blocks you from ascending upwards. Quite a few enemies that have been in Abyss have this annoying aspect to them, so if you want to be able to Dragonstrike consistently independent of the enemy model, it will be necessary at some point to learn how to do this. With that, I hope this helps you with the current and future endgame cycles, and that you learned a thing or two about Dragonstriking. Please let me know if you have any questions down below in the comment section, and see you next time!